Hey, is this thing on? Lance, Nick, ready? Can you hear me? Welcome to the Live Free and Hunt podcast. Live Free and Hunt podcast, episode 13. We had Erik and Colby on. We talked some big swim bait fishing. I think it went pretty well. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't know and a lot of good tips in this. These guys catch some monster bass. A lot of good input in this podcast. A lot of stuff I didn't know. But these guys are catching hogs. So, yeah, great podcast. And listen up.
Here we go.
Like a bad deck of cards that loves to lose. You don't listen to me, and I don't want you to, 'cause we sure have fun throwing my money away. You bet high, I bet low. You're all in and I'm all broke. Another paycheck down the drain.
All right, it is Saturday morning, 11 o'clock, something like that, July 11th. And we're going to talk some fishing today. We got Colby and Erik on. We're just going to go through the basics. So we're going to start at the very beginning for beginners, kind of like what me and Nick are. So let's get into it. Yeah. So
before we really get into it, though,
go ahead.
The photo roll that you sent, that these guys sent to you, was amazing.
Yeah.
To look at that, and whenever I get a picture, the first thing I do when I look at the picture is try to get some type of reference for size. And having to watch you guys two-hand fish, and having to watch you guys
some fucking slabs,
flex to hold up a fish that was a green and black 5-gallon bucket or so, is pretty impressive. There's no ground shrinkage on fish like that.
Right. So I just want to start off, whoever wants to go first, how you got started in the outdoors, either hunting or fishing, and just see how you guys grew up doing it. Let's go.
I started off when I was like 6 years old, toting a 410 up a dirt road, essentially, with my dad down in Bedford, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, just going out with him, sitting in blinds. A lot of times, I was just out there with him. He had the gun in his hand, and he was just showing me how to hunt, essentially what to look for, how to track, do things like that. And, just grew up in the outdoors with him, fishing, hunting, the whole 9 yards. It was great,
When
from
did
a young age.
When did you get like serious about it? Was it just always, you had drive? Like, I don't know, when I was little, like my dad, gun season, you get ripped out of school for a day for opening deer season. I'm like, yes, this is the best.
Right.
And that was like, that was the shit right there.
For me, it was duck season. First week of October, it was my birthday, it was duck season. Yep. It was like better than Christmas.
Yeah.
What was it for you? Was it fishing? Was it hunting?
Hunting was definitely what I started off with the most. Deer hunting for sure. I didn't think deer even existed in New Hampshire for like the first 4 years that I hunted. But I saw my dad shoot a couple deer, and then he eventually put the gun in my hands, and I took a doe when I was 8 years old with a 410, and ever since then it's been pretty much history.
Nice.
Really into it since then. Picked up bow hunting when I was 15, so it took me a little bit longer to get into that. But once I picked that up, I fell in love with that. I shot my first deer ever with a bow when I was 15, and that was just a small button buck.
Yeah.
Weighed like 80 pounds.
It's the best thing in the world.
It was amazing, man. It was amazing, and ever since then I've been a big bow hunter. I still rifle hunt, but big bow
Good
hunter.
deal. Erik, what about you?
Hell yeah. So basically, my mom started me out fishing, more or less. She goes, Erik, we were poor, and we didn't have much to do, so she would stay home in the summertime, took me worm and bobber fishing. So that's how fishing really started.
Right, yeah.
When my dad took me out, he said I was more excited about being able to pee outside, which kind of like I still am really pumped about.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it.
So she goes, man, Erik, you took like this thing I took you to do that was like low cost, like low maintenance, and you made it the most expensive hobby ever. So like basically, yeah, started fishing when I was younger. Had to be probably about 6, 7. My mom would take me and my friends down to Merrimack. There's a park, and go by the river and catch catfish and stuff like that. And then really, really got into it when I was in college. Started bass fishing, got real into trout and salmon because I was up at Plymouth State. So, the opener, April 1st. Was fortunate enough to meet a buddy, my buddy Josh. Called him Dad for a while because he took me out, taught me, because hunting, nobody hunts in my family. Yeah. So he took me out, taught me a lot of the ropes, how to basically set a tree stand, why you're doing this, why you're doing that. And yeah, I think I shot my first deer. It took me 7 years to shoot my first deer.
Yeah, it's about the going rate.
Yeah, New Hampshire. So it was with a bow. I think not nearly as many deer as you guys have shot, but I think I got 5 or 6 under my belt.
Nice, yeah.
All of them with a bow except the only buck, which was an 11-pointer.
Very nice. Very nice.
Small deer.
But yeah, and then fishing really it's come back around, more bass fishing, because now I got 3 boys. It's tough time away from the family, until they can really get them into it. And so I do a lot of night fishing. And I found swim baits and found Colby, and he's kind of been the guru that showed me the ropes a lot. And we'll go out and I'll watch how he's retrieving things and try to pay attention to little nuances and just subtle things he says. Is one thing he said will stick with me always is you're gonna catch them how you want to catch them. Yeah. So whatever bait you use,
you're gonna catch them that way because you like that bait. Yeah.
So yeah, basically
you just got to figure out the scenario to put that bait into play. Right?
Yep.
The big thing about swim bait fishing is you have to have the patience to be able to stick to that bait, whether it's working or not. You know what I mean? If you want to catch a fish on whatever bait, just pick one of those. It may take 5 hours to catch a fish on that, but that one fish may be worth all those 5 hours. You know what I mean? And I actually have a really good example of that. Is I was fishing on a pond once. I went 6.5 hours without a bite and throwing the same bait the whole time. And eventually, on a drop off, got the thump 6.5 pounder.
Just like that.
Just like that.
So sticking with it, staying similar to a deer track.
So
you stay on it, you stay on it, you push that deer, maybe you get a miss, you stay with it.
Exactly.
And then eventually it's the pot of gold.
So you guys have been hunting a long time. You pass on deer when you see them now. It's not like when you're younger, you see a deer.
Yeah,
I'm shooting.
It's going down. Yeah.
Right. So same thing with fishing. Especially swim baits, we're looking for that one bite. You're looking for that one buck that's on your trail cam that you've been following maybe a year, 2 years. Right. Patience game.
So before we get too much into the swim bait thing, for a beginner like myself, so I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, I know, because I've been fishing this way my whole life, is, I base it around motorcycle weekend in New Hampshire. But that's when I figure that the bass are, in shallow on the beds, and I can throw, what I generally throw is a wacky rig, and then just bounce it kind of, and they hit. Yep. It's quantity, not quality, the way that I fish it, because I'm catching everything between, 10 inches to, you can catch a 4-pound bass like that,
Mm-hmm.
But can you go through the scenarios, maybe the seasons, and then maybe I don't want to get too in depth with weather and shit like that, but so as of now, if someone was going to go fish right now and they wanted to catch a fish, what would they be looking for, vegetation wise, everything like that?
Well, right now, heat of the summer, those big fish are going to suspend deep. So I'll give you another example. So there's a pond that I fish that it's pretty small and it's 45 feet deep, essentially just like a big bowl, right? Well, if you go there during the day, those big fish are just going to suspend in 20, 30 feet of water, and they're just going to be sitting there. They're not going to be in shallow. It's 95 degrees outside or 90 or even 85 degrees outside. They're not going to be in shallow because they're going to be hot in that water. Yeah. And they're not necessarily hunting during that time because it's so hot outside.
Well, it's like when it's too cold, they're lethargic. When it's too hot, they're lethargic.
So
it's you. Right?
Same scenario. Yeah.
So what happens is you want to target those places when it's real early in the morning or right before dark or even during dark, right? Yeah. So middle of the night for me is usually the best time because those big fish are now going to come in shallow and they're going to be hunting at that point because it's cooler outside, and they have the darkness on top of it. So they're not afraid to come into 2-3 feet of water. You know what I mean? Versus during the middle of the day, they're not going to be in that. You know what I mean? So fishing shorelines, during the night during the middle of the summer is definitely the best. I mean, I would recommend that. Weed lines, any sort of structure, underwater structure. If you have, radar and things like that, you're able to pinpoint like rock piles or anything like that.
Down tree or
anything like
brush.
that. Yep, they'll sit around that stuff for
underwater
sure.
Points.
Points, drop-offs, anything like that. Again, swim bait fishing during the middle of the summer is definitely better at night versus the daytime.
Right.
Not, you can still catch really big fish during the day. You just got to find the right fish at the right time, essentially.
So essentially, like you were asking basically, so to start for a beginner. So slow moving when it's cold, right? Like in the spring, right before.
Scoot up to your mic just a little bit.
All right, good?
Yeah.
All right. So you want slow moving baits, right?
Yeah.
So the bait fish, what they're feeding on is a lot smaller that time of year too. So you're looking at like jigs, maybe Ned rigs, tubes, things like that. Real slow moving. You can catch them on swim baits, but you're going to be creeping it.
Yeah.
So, and obviously as the water warms up, they get the pre-spawn. They're starting to put the feed bag on a little bit more.
Yeah.
You can upsize. And then I noticed like right now it's gill season for me. Like I like throwing gill size and style baits because the bait fish now, like they've had their fry, they're starting to get a little bigger. So that's what they're feeding on naturally. So I noticed that they definitely like to chew, especially in New Hampshire. Like not a lot of perch style baits I've caught them on. It's like that bluegill like profile.
Right. So for a point of reference, we're talking about like a 6 or a 7 inch looking bait.
Yes.
These things look like a 6 or 7 inch bluegill. It looks like you've got a saucer with treble hooks hanging out.
Yep, essentially. And what you can do too is during the springtime, right? I use the springtime when the water's cold as a time to take notes and figure out where fish are. So what I'll do is I'll take a glide bait, which is essentially a bait maybe about 7 to 8 inches. And what that does is it doesn't have the bill on the front, right? So it's just a slick bait. And what it does is it glides back and forth. So it will have like, that kind of action to it. Where it's,
left to right
left
action.
to right. And what happens is that can create like a lot of followers. So bass sometimes will not necessarily hit the bait, but they'll follow it right behind it. So you'll fish down trees or points or, drop offs or things like that. And you'll get these followers that'll come out. And they won't hit the bait, but they'll be right behind it. And you take notes. Okay, I seen that 6-pounder that came out of there.
So he's gonna sit there for as the water warms up. He might go a little bit deeper during the day, but you think he's gonna come back to that core area.
Exactly.
And you're more or less taking stock as if you were running a trail camera. And you're like, okay, this was a 3-pounder follow, but we got a 6-pound follow over here.
Exactly. And those big fish will hold areas for a long time. So if I see that fish in the beginning of May, that fish will be there in June as well in that same area. Maybe not always, you know what I mean? But a lot of times they will. And, I've had those big followers like that. I go back a month later when the water's a little warmer. I'll throw a crank down bait or something different and bang, hit that fish. It's...
Gives you a starting point.
Exactly.
It's like you're scouting with that glide bait.
Yeah, and I'm doing this at multiple ponds, and lakes and all these different places. So it's like I'm taking an inventory essentially of where these fish are and going back and hammering them. So
and back to your reference of like bike week, I lost a PB boat side. Had to be. I just moved into the house early May.
Yeah.
Like in a couple feet of water, she sipped it
and then just flopped right off.
Hooks like as it went to netter.
So and during that, one more thing on the bed season, right? So bed season, bass hate bluegills, right? Because bluegills are always trying to move in on the bass bed, right? So the best thing to do is if you're going to be fishing that bed season and you can physically see fish on beds, putting a bluegill swim bait through that bed is almost guaranteed.
They're going to whack it.
They're going to smoke it. Even if they smoke it just to brush it off, to get it off the bed, they're still going to probably get some hooks in there, and then you're gonna end up hitting that fish.
Oh, shit.
So when you're throwing these giant baits, what type of gear do you have to throw these baits?
So I'm running an 8-foot medium heavy fast action rod. So that's it's got that fast action on the tip, but it's got a lot of backbone in it down towards the reel to really sink hooks, because when a fish is hitting, you're really leaning into that, right? Because you want those hooks to sink.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger bait, so maybe sometimes they're not going to get all hooks, they're going to get a portion of the bait,
right?
So you really got to drive those hooks home, especially with like a soft bait or something that just has a top hook on it. They're going to inhale that, and then you got to really sink the hook on it.
Especially on top, right?
Yeah, especially on top. And then bait caster wise, always throwing bait casters, never throwing spinning gear for these at all. At least that's what you're supposed to throw for them. Some people will get away with heavier, spinning.
I've always
setups and
wondered.
stuff, but-
I have, like, growing up, I've run a spinning reel, and streams and shit. I'll still use them.
Yep.
The only reason why I switched to a bait caster was, to be honest with you, you watch Bassmasters and those guys fucking slamming them, like, it just looks
Right.
it just looks cool. It feels comfortable. So that's why I started running a bait caster. But what is the benefit to, obviously they call it a bait caster, I understand that, but what's the real benefit to that compared to a spinning reel?
Well, you get options with gear ratios depending how you want to fish. Like a higher gear ratio, you can burn a bait slower. Like we're fishing pretty slow for the most part. Like we'll burn baits, like burn, pause. But you want like a 6.6?
Yeah, usually like 6.41 or depending on the bait, right? So if I took a crank down bait that, I like to work slow, let's say, I might have a 5-something gear ratio for a bait caster, which is essentially you're going to reel the same speed, but because it's geared lower,
it's just pulling.
It's going to pull slower, so you're not going to get as much crank out of the bait or whatever. But those are good for springtime again when you're working baits slow and you're trying to get fish just to follow or potentially hit. Yeah, exactly. But 300 size bait casters, to answer your original question.
Yeah, no,
300 size is usually.
Because the only reason why I ask is because I don't have a setup to, some guys have 6 different reels and they're set up with their baits, with their, test, whatever. And the only reason why I say that is because when I reel something, I know I need to reel it slow, then I'll just reel it slow. But obviously that's not, with a gear ratio, you can reel the same speed. It's just moving. It's pulling
more or
slower,
less
right?
line, yeah.
Okay.
Plus, on top of it, those bigger bait casters, those 300 size bait casters are meant for those heavier baits, right?
Yeah.
So if you're throwing a 3.5 ounce bait on a 100 size bait caster, you're gonna wear that bait caster out. It's gonna end up
burn the
being
gears,
junk.
yeah.
Eventually.
Oh, really?
Yes,
No
because
shit.
it's not rated for that size.
Because if it's
bait.
heavy, think about it. When you go hit free spool, you hit the button, you go to cast. It's going. If you got a heavy bait,
It's fucking going.
It's cooking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's too much for the smaller reel.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yep.
what are you spooling them with? Are you running like a braid right to the bait, or what are you doing?
So that depends. I know a lot of guys, if they're throwing like top water rats or just wake baits, they'll run braid. But I think that depends too on like the action on your rod too. Because like if your rod's too stiff and you're running braid, you're gonna pull hooks. The hooks will straighten right out.
Exactly.
Really?
Like on a big fish, they'll straighten those hooks.
I guess I haven't caught anything big.
Yeah.
I should
Not that big.
I got
Straighten some hooks on a few trees and rocks.
I got a pile of hooks at home that are all bent.
Trophies.
From fish.
No shit.
I keep
That's
them
cool.
all. Yeah,
That's
some of them
awesome.
straighten
You use
right
them as
out,
tacks to
essentially.
hold shit to the wall.
So I guess like you can kind of like when you run a frog rod, right? You're using braid. You're using the longer rod, probably 7.6, maybe 8.
Yep.
Where you're just doing traditional stuff.
Heavy
running
braid.
a frog, heavy braid.
usually.
Yep. So when you set that hook and you got that long rod, the sweep, there's no stretch in the line.
It just boom. It's right there.
Exactly.
Hammers.
But
See.
so I use like typically I'm running like 20 to 25 pound P line. That's my go-to.
That's
Okay.
the juice
Okay.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm running to. I run what I do. A lot of people would probably say is not the best way to do it, but it works for me, kind of thing. I run 20 to 25 pound fluoro all the way right to the bait.
Right to the bait.
A lot of people will say you should do a leader on there like braid 2 fluoro or something like that, or monofilament or something like that. I don't do that. I just run it straight to the bait. And it works for everything. I throw wakes with that. I throw crank down baits with that. And again, a lot of people would say that's the wrong way to do it,
Yeah.
right? But if
It's
it works,
working.
it works. Right?
Don't change
So
it.
you can't.
Or adding the
I
clip.
saw a picture reel of proof that that's working.
And two, like a lot of times we use like clips running to the bait.
Yep.
You'll notice some of the baits have split rings onto the eye hook of the bait, so that gives it a little extra
Let me
action.
see one of those.
Yeah. So right here, like this one.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
That's
And,
about the size of a bunker for you saltwater fishermen.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're giant. I would never.
But you'd be surprised the size of bass will actually hit it.
Not big bass will hit. I
Even
mean,
smaller fish will hit it.
no shit.
I've caught bass the size of this with this bait.
Really? So it's similar to like ice fishing with like a perch jig.
Essentially,
Like,
yeah. I mean,
catch a 4-inch perch on a 4-inch perch jig
Yeah.
all the time in the winter.
yeah. And so like so he's got the the ring still on there, so you can put it right under there, or you can take that off and you can
You're just
go
tying straight to
but
this.
I don't tie to this, so we use snap clips is what they call them.
Okay.
They're saltwater snap clips.
Looks like a paper clip almost.
Yeah, like a paper clip. They're rated.
I think I know what you're talking
for
about.
like 50 pounds or something like that. And I'll put that on here and then I'll tie to that clip.
Okay.
So
is it?
And what's that to do? Is that just to get like an extra joint in there to give it
well,
more
no,
action?
that's actually to make changing baits easier.
Okay.
So if I want to change baits, it's as easy.
You're not
as just
cutting your
popping
line
it off the clip and putting a new one on.
But
Okay.
in the same breath, it can change the action of the bait the way it's
It can.
designed, right?
Yeah.
So
Like generally with like a glide style bait, you don't want to use the clip because the way the bait is actually made and tuned, that clip will throw it off, so it won't swim correctly. So like a glide, you would want to tie direct.
Okay.
But a build bait, all day.
All day.
All day.
All right. So moving into, I guess, late summer. Is the same kind of techniques through the summer once it's the water temperature hits a certain point?
Yeah, I mean, generally summertime, I'm fishing nighttime a lot, early morning, and then right before dark. I mean, that doesn't change really.
Like
It's
when I think about night fishing in New Hampshire and the way I grew up is
hornpout.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Hornpout, or you're fishing off your buddy's dock that that's it. But when you're targeting fish, that's what you're doing. You're going out to a
Specifically.
that's the one spot and targeting bass that way. So
right. Night fishing for us is usually just a byproduct of drinking.
right, yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
hey, we're hanging out with somebody.
Exactly.
Let's throw something in, and if we reel something up, it's fun.
which is weird. Like Colby and I, I don't think we even have any beers at night, really. Once in
No.
a while. But
Yeah, have a couple beers or
But it's
whatever.
like-
but you're out there
You guys
for a
are-
certain
it's
reason.
game time for
I
you
got
guys.
plenty of beers underneath my belt.
Yeah.
Maybe not at night.
So one of the things we should mention too is you'll see that we got rat baits. So a lot of times that I like to do, I personally like to throw rats, and I think maybe a lot of other people is after a rain because everything's flooded.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's more burrows and things
coming out from the wood line or
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So even to backtrack just a little bit, like summertime, what type of body of water are you looking for? Not a name of a body of water, but is what type of a body of water?
Lake Massabesic, no.
No, are you looking
Okeechobee.
for something that's right, like Okeechobee. Like 40 acres? Are you looking for giant body of water, or just a spot that you've gone and scouted and there's big fish? Or are you looking to get away from people, maybe get a private access?
So let's put it this way: when you're looking for a new hunting spot, what's the first thing you probably look at? Google Earth.
Yeah, and look for a population. Is it hard to get to? Is it all that stuff? Okay.
So you guys are map scouting then, like Onyx map scouting for fish.
Yeah,
I
I
love
found
I love it.
a majority of places that I've caught in really big fish just by sitting, at home, looking at Google Earth and just looking at places and going, that looks pretty good. Depth is huge, right?
Okay.
Forage is huge. So some of the biggest places, or best places, I should say, that I've found big bass are places that are deep, generally bowl shaped, and they have trout.
Yeah.
Right?
So southern trout eaters, you should watch that.
Yeah.
Really?
Trout.
Fatty.
What is that? Southern trout eaters?
So basically, it's essentially people throwing swim baits. Like, I don't have one out right now, but like a glide bait, it's in the shape of a trout patterns. Like, these fish are gonna eat it. They're fatty. It's kind of like a tuna. A tuna knows what's nutritionally best for it, essentially.
Right.
So they're gonna eat herring. Herring's real fatty, right? Mm-hmm. So
I'll even go into stocking reports and things like that. So I'll start looking at those things and I'll say, okay, this pond, for instance, is 40 acres. It's 45 feet deep and it gets 1,500 trout a year. And now
They're going to be looking.
Now I
Yeah,
look
no
even
shit.
deeper into that, right? So now I'm looking at what size trout are they putting in there. They're putting in 8 to 10 inch stocky trout, right?
Yeah.
A 7-pound bass is going to have no problem eating a 10-inch trout. Not a problem at all.
Oh, this brings a
right?
whole different aspect in
I
my
know.
head, and I'm
I
fucked
know.
now because now
I just have to start over.
And that's what happens is I
Yeah.
look into that. Recently, when I caught that 7.2,
Yeah.
that was exactly that place. It got 1,600 brown trout every year, and it's 45 feet deep, and it's just the juice. It just looks it should hold those big fish. And in 5 hours of fishing, me and my buddy boated 4 fish, and they were 7.2, 5.1, 5.0, and 5.0.
God, wow, damn it!
So you're looking for a spot that's got deep enough water for big fish to stay cool too.
Exactly.
So that's
exactly.
like a key thing, because when I look for a spot for the wintertime for like a crappie spot, a white perch spot, or a lake trout spot, I've got certain things that I key in on, you know, certain types of structure or certain depth. So one of those things for you, for these giant bass, is the pond's got to be deep enough that it gets cold and these big fish can get down.
Exactly. You know,
what about a, sorry to cut you off, like a natural... Not a natural a spring or a river that's running in. Will they, like a mouth of a stream or river, is that cold enough where they hang out there in a shallower pond?
Yeah, there's feed that's still going to come through.
Well, you got to figure too, moving water, right?
Yeah.
Water coming in, there's going to be oxygen there. That's where a lot of the bait fish are going to hang out, you know, and they're going to suspend right off of that and wait for that water to naturally carry that bait in, you know, or that bait's going to be there and they're going to be sitting there waiting for that. You know, anything like that is real good.
So do you guys not backpack in, but like if you scout something and it's out in the middle of the woods, you don't know the depths, because some of these like little pot, you know, swamps or sloughs or whatever you want to call them.
Yep.
There's no depth chart on those if you look online. Have you ever walked out to some place just to be like, maybe it holds bass, maybe it's, you know,
I guess
you're smiling. You're smiling.
I'll be honest. I had a place. I was hanging out one night, just like we were talking about, looking at Google Earth, and I seen this swamp that was more like a pond. You know, it had depth to it. You could tell just by looking at it. You can tell by looking at it, right, how dark the water is, how much vegetation there is, things like that. And I remember seeing this place one time, and I said, I'm going to put a kayak in there. And it was probably a good half mile through the woods, and I wheeled a kayak all the way out there. And
over down trees and stumps.
Oh,
and
yeah.
shit.
Nice. It was rough woods. And I got it out there, and I dumped in there, and I stuck a 515 out there.
No way.
Kidding.
Yeah.
God. So yeah, with the map scouting stuff and like not having depth maps, I watched a thing where the guys from Uncut Angling, I don't know if you're familiar with them, out of Canada, but they were using Google Earth, and they were zooming in to where you get those high definition pictures, and you would like, you know, picking out main lake spines and all these different things.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's a good idea.
It's like,
yeah.
I mean, we do it for ducks. We do it for deer.
Yeah, I just never...
We read Audubon Society reports for where the ducks are.
Are you guys fishing anything big bodies of water, or is you just trying to focus on like for these big bass? They're probably more harder to target, I guess.
Yeah, so
that's the only other aspect, right?
Yeah, I'd say like I fish a 12-foot John boat, so like the smaller.
So you're not going on Winnie.
I've never been a big fan of Winnie.
Yeah, no. Right now it's
I
busy
like little
shit.
squam and but like stuff like that, but still a fairly good size, you know, body of water. But like Colby said, like I learned a lot from him. Like I got the Google Earth thing from him. It was, like, last year we were talking. And, like, I found this little pothole, and like, so I'm like, that's a good idea. So you know, get up with the kids. I'm like, all right, Google Earth. Like,
so when
let's
you're
go for a drive,
yeah, exactly. So if you had to choose, you'd rather fish these little small, you know, deeper ponds or whatever they are.
Yeah, people like to think like, you know, bigger body of water is going to hold bigger fish, right?
Yeah.
Which can be true. You know, like Winnipesaukee, for instance, you know, I've seen 6-7 pound bass in there.
Yeah.
But you got to remember how much you're fishing, right? You're trying to dissect this place that's huge. You know, you're never going to be able to understand it fully. I mean, you will, I guess, over a long period of time. But those smaller ponds with the right, that's the key, is you have to find those smaller ponds that have the right forage, the right depth, all of that stuff.
You have a checklist.
I mean?
Check, and then you're like, okay, we can pursue this.
Exactly.
I'll put it to you this way: my biggest smaller, that 5'6", it was a pond that's 50 acres.
Really?
If that. But again,
so also
trout.
something that's manageable too, that where you can pick the whole thing apart. You can learn every rock, you can learn every piece of structure in it, something that's 50 acres with maybe 1 or 2 trips, and you guys know what you're looking for.
Exactly. That's key. You know, that the size it makes it doable in that aspect. You know, you can actually understand how these fish are, like I said, you know, with the glide baits, figuring out where fish are. You know, if you're on a pond that's only 45 acres and you do that so many times, you're going to figure out, okay, these fish are hanging out in this area on this structure versus like this area over here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're on Winnipesaukee, it's like
infinite amount of places.
You got 7 miles of the Broads to go by. You know, and then how many bays off of it?
Right.
Exactly.
Jesus.
300 islands to fish around.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the big swim bait, is that what you call that? Like, what you guys, big swim bait or swim baits?
Swim baits is just a broad term for all of the baits, right? But they're all different. Like there's There's paddle tail baits, there's wake baits, there's crank down baits, there's wake and cranks, there's all sorts of different baits, right? Swim baits is just like the broad spectrum.
I mean, but the ones that you have on the table right here are giant. So how big is like this size swim bait community in New Hampshire? Do you know a lot of people that run these?
It's growing, but a lot of people will dabble in it and they don't commit.
They get frustrated.
Like, yeah, like that's really like I don't have any traditional gear any longer. Like I enjoy fishing for that one bite. Like I'd rather get skunked throwing the big stuff 5 trips in a row than catch 52 pounds.
Right.
Exactly. It's like hunting now. I'm sure you've got enough deer underneath your belt, right?
Yeah.
So now you're like, I want that.
You're looking for that one.
Well, and like you said, you catch them the way you want to catch them. It's like when we hunt ducks.
Right.
You know, we could shoot at passing ducks or whatever, but we want them back flapping in front of the decoys. We fooled them. We did it our way.
Right.
So what does one of these, you know, a 7-inch jointed hard bait go for?
Depends.
You know, if you were to say mid-grade, something like that.
You got that BBC?
Yeah, BBC's right here.
All right. So just it'd be easier to show.
There you go.
I mean, let's see here.
Right now we're rummaging through this tackle box with giant rats and looks like a crappie in there.
It's a Rubbermaid box.
Yeah,
like you store clothes in for the off season.
OD.
Oh,
So, for instance, this and this are the same exact bait, right? This bait goes for $30. This bait goes for $140. But they do the same thing, right? So this is just cheaper made, right? So this is plastic. It's not as quality. But this one right here, you can tell by the center, you know, it's all heavy duty hardware on there. But they do the same thing.
So what's the $130 bait made of? Is it aluminum?
This is a resin bait. So this is actually out of a mold.
Sure.
And this can be harder than wood in a way. You know what I mean? It can be more durable than wood. But again, so back to the original question, this bait right here is a perfect starter bait, right? So this bait will catch you just as many fish as this bait will. But as you grow, you know, in the sport of swim bait fishing, you may say, hey, I want to try some more quality baits, you know, and you start going in this direction.
Sure.
Right? So, but this bait right here, this BBC rat, that's what I started out with. I had 3 of those things. I started out, I fished a whole season with those, and by the end of the season, all 3 of those rats were destroyed.
That caught my first 6-pounder.
Really?
Oh, yeah, destroyed. And that's what built the confidence. You know, you got to build that confidence. A lot of people will pick up these baits and they want that miracle right away.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to throw this big bait and I'm going to catch a giant fish. Yeah. Well, it doesn't happen like that all the time. It happens like that, but not all the time.
Do you guys catch, 3, 4s?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like regularly on those?
You'll catch I've caught some that you can't even weigh in pounds.
Oh, really?
Come up it's
Yep. Yep.
Where can you find a bait like this? Is around here? Is there any place, or any of these bigger swim baits? Are they hard to find around here?
That gets into a whole nother conversation essentially. So like this bait, for instance, you can go to a Bass Pro or like a wildlife taxidermy, on the Circle there by Mazabizic.
Okay,
you can go to a place like that and you can get one of those baits.
Yeah.
I mean that's commercially made and all that. Then you get into this stuff, which is handmade, right? So this is all custom work. That stuff is built up from the ground by somebody and a lot of time put into making that.
Yeah.
So that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the handmade portion of it. You know what I mean? Versus like a machine just pumping
It's almost
that
like
out.
it comes full circle. Well, the way you guys are fishing, the way you guys are doing things, and then you're running a bait that someone made, put their hard-earned time, not just a machine in our
you could
press.
talk to that even more with some of the baits right here.
Yeah, so let me see that one closest to you. Yeah, so this bait, for instance, this is from my buddy at Go2 Swim Baits, Sean Cairns. Shout out to him. He's one of the best bait makers I know. I mean, this guy's out of Londonderry, New Hampshire.
Oh, no shit.
He distributes
Look at that thing.
all over the place. And this is fully custom, painted, built from the ground up. I mean, it
looks sick.
One of one. You can't get this bait anywhere. I mean, this is it right here.
The scale detail on that's amazing.
Yeah, you guys can check that out. And yeah, I mean, he got me into swim baits. I mean, there's a long story behind that, but he got me into them and, he really paved the way and showed me, what works and all that. And he's been a great friend, gave me a lot of really cool baits.
Super knowledgeable.
Very knowledgeable guy.
You're bringing in a whole different aspect.
Like you'd eat that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Hell yeah.
I'm believers.
So the cool thing about that bait is that's like a hybrid bait, right? So that's what I would call a wake and crank.
Okay.
So that bait floats, and it has the option to wake on the surface, and it kind of like flops on its side like it's a dead fish on
Right,
the
so
surface, right? Or you can crank it down, and it will, with that bill on the front, it'll crank
Dive.
down to about 3 to 4 feet, and it'll swim just like a perfect fish swimming through the water.
drives
And
them
it gets
nuts.
it hangs at 3 feet. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Did you say
the bill,
3?
No, so it's a floater. So
Yeah.
that bill is driving it to 3 feet, and if I keep cranking, it's going to stay at that 3 feet. But
It's
as soon
not
as
gonna
I
drop
let up,
further. Okay.
it's going to go right to the surface.
Float up and turn
Yeah.
on its side.
And it makes it versatile because you can be fishing. Let's say you're fishing like submerged vegetation, right? And you're in 6 feet of water, and you got vegetation that's coming up 3.5, 4 feet.
Yeah.
That kind of bait is perfect because you can, judging by your speed, on your retrieval,
Right.
you can keep that bait only a foot, and you can just keep it right above the
Right
weeds.
there.
And those fish that are suspended in there or chilling in there, they'll come up
Yeah.
and hit that. Versus a sinking bait, right?
Right.
So
That-
sinking bait's going to put you in the weeds.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of times too, if you're casting, say you're in a boat, you're casting too short, you can wake it, and as a drop off, you can crank it down that embankment.
Exactly. Yeah.
To stay in the strike zone of the fish.
Yep.
Right.
So when you see a 7-pounder come up and eat it, does it look like Jaws? Does it look like a giant mouth coming up at a bait?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, you'll get those times too. Like, so I got a rat. Like, I caught a 611 last fall, and fishing the rat, the Woodrow. Shout out, another Cali made bait. Great dude, and creeping it right along the lily line. This body of water I've fished it forever, so I know like I can fish in 45 minutes. If I'm not gonna get anything, I'm not gonna get anything. 'Cause
Yeah.
I've just fished it so long. So creeping it, sipped it, like just like, and I'm like, did I miss it? I'm like, what the heck? So I'm reeling down it. No.
It's coming towards you?
Yep, it just sipped it. Didn't blow up, just went, and that's a 10-inch bait, like bow to stern. And I look at it, I'm like, oh shit. It ended up being a 611.
No shit.
So I noticed a lot of the time, the big fish don't have to rush to crush a bait because they're
Yeah.
not in competition with anybody.
Right.
Okay.
So the little fish sometimes will try and murder it, right?
Yeah.
So the big fish, they just move. They have a presence. They're like, don't get me wrong.
That's it.
Sometimes they'll absolutely toilet bowl it, and it literally sounds like, boom, like
Yeah.
just-
You're like,
Oh, yeah.
what the hell
Yeah.
just happened?
Yep.
That's a good feeling.
Sounds like a beaver slapping
yeah.
the water.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
wow.
Exactly what it sounds like. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, even the big fish will do that. Like that 7 I caught, that thing came up and destroyed it. I thought it was going to be a small fish.
Are these bigger fish? Are they like I've noticed? Oh, I think I noticed a difference. Like smallies, I'll catch a smaller smallie and like a a decent largemouth, and the fight that the smallie has, I'm like, holy shit! Like
I look at it like smallies are angry. They're northerners, right? They're
Yeah.
like us. Like, it gets cold up here. We hate it. We're grouchy. We were just talking about that earlier. Like,
Yeah.
from the Northeast. Like, they're just mean.
Oh yeah, they are.
I
Yeah.
accidentally caught a smallie. It was similar, like you said, swimming towards you, lake trout fishing. So through the ice on a 24-inch rod.
Yep.
And jigging on a spot, and I'm watching the transducer, and I see something come up, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Looked like, an air bubble or something zooming up, and I'm trying to find my bait and feel the tension. I look down, and there's a spool. The wire's just coiled on top of the water right at the hole.
Yep.
So I reeled all the way up, and the fish was right under the ice. Like, he hit it all the way up to the top. and
no
then
shit.
Peeled the line all the way down.
Yeah.
Because I'm fishing a 24-inch rod. But that was like, felt like I was holding on to a horse,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that was probably under 4 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine a 5'6" smallie.
They're out there.
They're out
The state records still, that could be broken. I'm confident. Like,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
it, like 8 and change for a smallie? I
I
think
think it's 7 something. I
7
don't know.
something?
I'm not sure, but
there's some bodies of water that could beat it.
so yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say one more thing about the smallie fishing. So night fishing 2 years ago, I was fishing a real big wake bait. I didn't bring it with me, but it was a 2-piece wake bait. Got smashed, and
Yeah.
Fish comes in. My buddy nets it, and I go, "Is that a smallie or a largie?" And we're looking at it for a good minute. We're like, "What is that?" I get it confirmed by Fish and Game. It was a hybrid.
Oh,
of
no
both
shit.
a largemouth and a smallmouth. Yeah, and it was
So
just.
would it have like the vertical lines of a smallie?
I'll show you a picture of
Okay,
it.
yeah, yeah.
We'll get a picture. But that fish was huge. It was just under 6 pounds.
No
and,
way.
And that thing came up, and I couldn't believe it. And that was one of the craziest fish I've ever caught.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you guys are fishing these majority of these swim baits, in a, I know he said he has a John boat or a kayak. Are you fishing from shore? Doesn't matter. Do you have a preference?
I generally don't fish from shore just because I don't want to lose lures. I've
right,
gone
right.
swimming in the Piscataqua River.
Oh, I can imagine.
before.
Those fuckers.
Right. That's like throwing your wallet in the
Yeah,
water.
because like I said earlier, some of those baits are one of one. I mean, you can't just replace that bait. You know? So, but yeah, generally kayak fishing. I kayak fish a lot, and then if I'm not on my kayak, then I'm with him on a boat or other buddies on boats. Never really from shore.
Nice.
He does shore fishing though.
Yeah.
So I just looked up the state record. Smallmouth is 7 pounds, 14.5 ounces.
That's
I owe you a
pretty much
beer.
an
You're right.
8 pound.
That's real close.
Yeah,
I think a largemouth, what's 10 and change? That could
10,
be
8.
too.
Yeah, 10,
that's
8,
out there. I fished like before, like that's the thing. You look back, like right when you're growing the sport, you're growing hunting, you're growing fishing, and I look back, I was salmon fishing, I remember, in a little tributary to Winnipesaukee, early April, right? And I'm in a crawdad. Have you ever fished out a Coleman crawdad? I love those boats.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
little
yeah,
rubber
yeah.
boat.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's plastic.
Yeah, they're awesome, right?
Yeah.
We're fishing in it, and I'm like, I look down, and I shit you not, this fish had to be over 10 pounds. It's a largemouth. And I'm thinking, like, all right, what can I throw at it? This is years ago. It had to be 8, 9 years
But the
ago.
water's still
You got
cold,
You
right?
got a smelt on or a DB smelt little iron bait.
Like, just seeing that in the river, I'm like, there has to be bigger fish.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be surprised if that fish is pushing 10 pounds.
It's been a crazy year for records. Big fish. So
Right,
what
and
was
out
that?
of small water. Though.
Ice fishing. What's the guy's name?
Thomas Knight
Thomas Knight.
Yeah,
Yep.
he caught him, and then someone in Maine just did.
did, and they were both out of smaller bodies of water.
Really,
And they
I don't
were-
know where they were caught.
So
but-
the other thing I looked into was both of the previous state records. They smashed them by 9 pounds or more, and both of those fish were caught in 1958, the original records.
Both
And then-
of them.
So the record was set 1958 New Hampshire, same in Maine 1958,
and they
then
both broke.
broke in 2020.
That's wild.
Isn't that weird?
That is crazy.
Something's
2020
going on
is
in
a-
the
yeah,
water.
weird,
It's like those
Exactly.
those 1958 fish. Their fry were these fish now. You know,
Right.
Yeah, those fish
Yeah.
were alive. Absolutely back
Right.
then. Lake trout lived for a long time.
What
And
about
really-
what about bass? Do you know?
I think they generally gain a pound every 2 years in this state, versus Cali is like double that. You know,
Really?
like they'll go like 2 pounds every year.
Well, and
or
they put the
something
Florida
like that. It's
strain
all-
largemouth out there, right?
or that too. Yeah, it's
'cause
all
they
different.
grow a little faster, I think, and grow bigger.
Forage,
Or
you know,
maybe it's
weather.
Mexico that they introduced the Florida bass too, because they have like a Florida strain largemouth.
No shit.
Could have been, yeah. Yeah, it's really forage and weather. You know, here we have harsh winters and stuff like that, so it's
The body
different.
of water doesn't. I don't know why I've heard this, but like, if you put a fish in a what are those koi fish things? They only grow to a certain amount.
No.
Is that a real thing?
No. If they get enough feed, they get enough oxygen, they got the right climate, they're gonna grow. It's like a
Yeah.
turtle. They say that with turtles. You have a turtle, it's gonna grow the size of the enclosure. No,
Yeah, no.
it's gonna grow.
It's gonna grow.
Well, if you think
type
about
of fish
it, you
that
know,
never stops growing.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you have, you going back to what we were talking about earlier. You have the right forage, the right depth, things like that. If a bass is eating 10-inch trout, right? Trout has a lot of nutrients, and
Yeah.
it's a good forage for
gonna get
bass.
out.
But if you have a bass that's in some shallow pond somewhere and it's only eating like little tiny perch and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it's not going to grow quite as fast.
Okay,
or it's
yeah.
not gonna
No,
be
that
as
makes sense.
healthy, So
Have you guys caught anything you weren't expecting on that?
I caught a crappie on a crawler. That was interesting.
Really?
Yeah, so it's I don't know. It's supposed to mimic what, a drowning bird or something like that.
Yeah, something
It like walks. So blew up on it too, which is interesting. Then I was like, did I miss the fish, or is it just like a little jack bass? No, it was a crappie, like a 15-inch crappie. I was like, huh,
yeah,
Oh,
that's
shit.
interesting.
I've gotten white perch, crappie.
Trout probably.
Yep, trout. Depending on the bait, a
Yeah,
trout's
yeah,
not
right.
gonna come up and hit a 10-inch bait, but
Yeah.
the right bait. And snapping turtles. Snapping
Ooh.
turtles. I've gotten a couple of them, and I actually lost a bait to one of them once. Couldn't get it off.
Are they
of them,
they're
so.
hitting fish or like a rat or
Top water?
Top water.
Yeah, rat, and then your rat. A
I
rat
would be
could
pissed.
Yeah,
That's an expensive
Oh,
turtle.
yeah.
I'm gonna club that bitch.
I was not happy that day. It was just perfectly on him. I couldn't get it back, but yeah, like topwater isn't necessarily just rats, right? So you can, like I said, with that bait over there, that's a wake and crank. That's a fish profile, but that could be a wake.
Yeah.
It's just a
one does
dead
it too.
fish or a dying fish, on the surface.
Snakes. People using snake lures.
Yep. Just like rats. Like rats are generally top water baits.
Yeah.
But you can crank a rat down too. A rat will swim underneath the water.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and that's natural as well. I've hit them both ways. So.
For fall, I've heard good things about fall.
That's the juice.
Fall fish.
Yep.
So, are you running the same style baits, or you switch it up? Anything technique wise or bait wise?
I find them more aggressive in the fall because they're putting that, we call it the fall feed bag.
Yeah, feed bag.
So since I slowed down hunting,
Yeah.
Past 3 years, within 3 days, calendar days of each other in September, I've caught in 6-pounders from the same spot.
Really?
Wow. Within 3 days. So it's like you start patterning. They're putting on that once it gets a little colder, they're still active because the water temp hasn't dropped, but the nights are a little cooler.
Oh yeah.
So what are the fish doing when at night the temperature drops till 40 degrees, 30 degrees, and that water temperature starts to get a little bit cooler? They're not down deep.
Yeah, you're going to generally find them in a little bit shallower. But like he said, they're putting that feed bag on, right?
Yeah.
So that time of the year is one of the best times to throw swim baits because, those bigger fish, let's put it this way. If you're a 6-7 pound bass, you're not going to want to chase around little fish like this.
That are quick and
It's like,
quick and
hey, do you want a salad or do you want a cheeseburger?
Exactly. Exactly. So those fish are going to take the opportunity to hit those bigger baits for a bigger meal, and they're only going to eat once or twice a day.
Yeah.
So what do you look for that fall feed bag to trigger? Is there like the leaves fall off or the lily pads die?
Moons.
Or
It's like deer hunting. Moons.
Really?
Yeah,
Moon phase? No shit.
Lunar, yeah. Absolutely.
Full moons.
I'm
Full
going
moons
striper
are-
fishing. I know it's off topic. I'm going striper fishing, I think, the 21st of July. It's a new moon on, I think, the 20th.
Yeah.
Like, some people, they argue, like, if you want a full moon or a new moon,
Yeah.
Same in deer hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Essentially the same.
So it's when you're saying like a full moon, is it because it's lit up and you think it has like whatever the moon is for deer, whether it's a magnetic pole or there's a bunch of different theories. Mm-hmm. It just works.
It
is
just
what you're
works.
saying.
It's
yeah.
just generally rule of thumb is if it's a full moon, the fishing's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially at night. And the best part about it too is you're out there at night. It's like being out there during the day.
Yeah, you can see.
It's so
right.
bright. So.
And I'm a firm believer too, like, not to jump, I know we were talking about fall, but jumping back to like spring and the spawn, similar to like, so what, the first full moon in November, typically we find around here deer are rutting.
Yeah.
Right. To kick off the estrus, all that.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer, like, when the water temps are in a ballpark, but then that full moon in the May, June time frame, depending on the year, obviously, that's when those big girls start moving up.
Yep.
Do you get so in depth where you're taking water temperatures like fly fishermen do? Do you take water temperatures?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a consideration. I mean, especially in the springtime, right? So
Use the hand, right?
Yeah. It's fucking cold.
I think in the springtime, I think it's 60 degrees is when they start spawning.
Yeah.
So right around that temperature is like when it's real good. You want to catch them like right before they're on the beds.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, 60 degrees, I think is usually the water's.
They're talking largemouth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because smallies are what, mid-50s?
Yeah, a little bit lower because
I didn't even know.
water fish. But
so, can I break down? Like, are you guys just trying to target like if you're running a certain bait, are you going to target a largemouth or target a smallie? Not really.
You'd be surprised. So I got that. I think you got it over there. That Wade Hogs right there, right in front of you.
Oh, right here.
So that one, right? So you would think largemouth, right? The other day, I actually had a giant unbutton with Colby. And brought a tear to my eye. And, I lost some sleep. And, but the other day I was fishing again with it, and I got blown up on. And I had like 1.5 pound smallie chew that. You would think a largemouth, right?
Really?
But like the smallie couldn't even fit that down his throat.
Yeah.
To eat it. But
couldn't even fit it in his mouth.
But they're just sitting there. Yeah.
So
shit.
They're attracted to. Really, the secret behind swim baits is your vibration and water movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sound on top of that. So if you're fishing a topwater rat, that fish is keying in on the vibrations from that bait, the water movement. That bill is deflecting all sorts of water. The fish can feel that on their lateral line.
Mm-hmm.
So when they see that up there, it's not only it's the vibration stuff, but it's also the sound as well. You have these baits that are two pieces, right? So they're knocking back and forth.
Right.
They're doing all these different things.
Yeah, when I've seen like a rattle, what do they call it, a rattle trap?
Yep.
I used to fish one of those a long time ago, and I was like, I don't know if there's any thing to it, but it's got a bunch of rattles. So they have swim baits with, they put rattles in that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
These things are ultra realistic. They look like they look as close to the real thing as you can do with these custom
Absolutely.
baits.
Yep.
So do you ever fish live bait? Do you ever grab giant red fins and throw them on a hook? Like
I used a bluefish for a mako shark the other day.
but not bad.
No, yeah, not bad.
The biggest largemouth I ever caught was pike fishing.
Ooh, pike. Oof.
Pike fishing up in Maine and fishing, a 6-7 inch redfin, and that's what caught the bass.
Yep. I mean, that's essentially what we're mimicking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Essentially throwing those baits is that when that bait comes by a fish, that fish is, I'm assuming, is thinking that's just a bait fish coming by me. You know what I mean? It's the same idea. So
I'll put it to you. I'll put it to you this way.
But you're controlling it.
How do you prefer to kill a deer, with a gun or a bow?
I like to do it with a gun, but that's just me.
So,
but,
so that's just it.
Yeah,
I like the bow.
It's how you enjoy it.
Right.
Exactly.
So So that's basically, you can catch them on a jig. You can catch them on a spinner bait.
Yeah.
We just.
Yeah.
But there's something to there's got to be something too that the fish that you guys are catching are monsters. So there's something to. Are you guys just getting lucky and catching big fish on big baits, or is that like a
luck
thing?
Luck comes into it, I think.
No,
like,
but
are you pulling them out of the tank at Cabela's? I think that's where he's going with it.
Is this all a bluff? Okay.
So I think it's like when preparation meets opportunity, that's luck. So like Colby does a lot of research in the bodies of water and how he's going to approach something. And I'm thankful for meeting him because I've learned a ton from him. Like honestly, it's been a pleasure. And like I said, like I'll watch him sometimes. We'll be fishing. I'll pause. I'm like, how's he retrieving? We're using a similar bait. Like, what's he doing?
Yeah. Why is he catching all the fish?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of little things to swim bait fishing. Like, for instance, you pitch a rat into a blowdown, right? And you get tapped. Like something just comes up and taps it. Well, instead of just reeling it really fast or whatever, trying to get it back in to throw it back in there, what I'll do is I'll let it just sit there for a couple minutes, right? Sometimes up to 2 minutes. I'll just
line
let it
travel.
sit there.
Do you wait for that?
No, you'll see the bait sitting on top of the water, and what happens is that fish came up and tapped it. A lot of people will think instantly, oh, that's probably a small fish, right? Because it just came up and tapped it.
Right.
Well, what I'll do is I'll let it sit there for 1 minute to 2 minutes sometimes, and just watch it, and then right before I reel it, I'll go twitch, and the rat will go like this, like that. Wham! The fish will just be sitting
so
there.
The fish is just down there waiting for its...
waiting to see some movement, come up and smoke it.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's like jerkbait fishing, right?
Yeah.
Jerk.
Sure.
On the pause. Boom.
Bam! Right there.
Yeah.
So moving into, we did fall. Are you fishing at all for like, not winter, but I guess, at what point does it get too cold where the fish stop hitting?
You can grind them out. Like, so I got some soft plastics in the smaller box underneath this one, and you can low and slow. Like the fish don't stop eating. You catch them through the ice, right?
Right.
It's gonna be slower fishing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Low and slow.
Soft baits are the key in that cold weather. And what it is that soft bait has a paddle tail, right? And that paddle tail, when it's underneath the water and it's going back and forth, it's actually making a thump sound underneath the water.
Okay.
And that bait is moving so slow.
Colby, if you want to.
That it gives those fish an opportunity to eat. You don't want to be cranking the bait in real fast because, so this tail right here, so that's making a thump as it's swimming. It's swimming just like that.
It's displacing water.
Just like that.
You don't have to move it much.
Nope. It's just a slow roll. Just a slow roll. And this thing will be seriously swimming like that fast.
It's painful.
It's
really
my least favorite way of swim bait fishing.
That one looks
but
eerily similar to a rainbow trout.
Yep.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yep.
What was that, a hook?
I'll
get it after.
Don't worry about it.
But yeah, back to the original question. I guess I'm a huge deer hunter, so once September comes around, I start to head into the woods for sure. But
you got cameras out yet?
Oh yeah.
All
the time.
When they go in the backyard.
Yeah.
You have a stand in your yard.
Any big trips coming up? You said you were gonna go striper fishing. When?
So July 21st, I think. So it's a week from Tuesday. So my buddy just went out. He got 20 fish, 8 being over 40 inches. The other night,
shit.
out of a kayak.
Whoa.
So gonna go do some of that. Like, I love the salt, but like something about these, these bucket mouths and these angry bronze backs, like they and throwing the big stuff. I just I don't know.
I'm interested now.
We'll get you out.
Yeah, we're gonna go out and we're gonna film. We'll put something out. It's gonna be fun. Nick and Lance are gonna go. Where are you guys going? Upstate New York.
Yeah, we're going to Plattsburgh.
Yeah,
gonna go do some bow fishing.
We're gonna film that too. So that'll be.
What do you get? Like gar, carp, everything? Or?
Yep, it's gar, carp, tench, which is an introduced fish up in Canada.
Okay, that's like, I see that in Europe a lot, right?
Yeah, they look like an overgrown goldfish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I lost track, but common carp is one that you can shoot. Bowfin's one that you can shoot. So there's a lot of fish in there, but they're hard to shoot.
I can imagine.
They're not really moving, but it's not like your traditional bow. It's more like shooting a recurve and then the water refraction. Like if they're if they're up in the water column, just hold dead on them. But if they're a foot under, it's like all bets are off. Like for me, like I go up and it's just like I just keep shooting until I finally figure out where the hell they are.
Yep.
And so it's a good time. It's just fun. And so go up with my old man and my son, and we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
Put out a video and
Heck yeah.
Have you guys messed around with carp at all in
Yeah.
New Hampshire?
Yep.
Yeah.
I haven't, but
No.
no.
I mean, they're giant, right? I haven't fished for them, but I've seen people in New Hampshire. Are they in the Connecticut River? Merrimack?
Both.
Both.
Nashville River. So I caught.
Is it a southern thing? It can't be because they're in
What, carp?
Plattsburgh. Yeah, like
No,
a southern state. I mean, for southern New Hampshire,
Oh no.
they're all over the place.
Yeah. They're invasive too, I think.
Yeah.
So, but
right, introduced.
I caught a 40-pounder
Jeez.
last year, or the year before.
No shit.
It's pretty cool. They get big. They're fun. So if anyone ever tells you like they're not fun, they come in like a boot.
Yeah.
Never got one.
Really?
They're fun.
Yeah.
And they're smart. And like that's a whole nother like.
I think
subset
I've
of
seen them
cult-like
like
stuff.
fishing mirror
Carpers.
meeting, like early spring. Like if we're gonna go trolling in these coves, I thought they were bass at the time, but they were fucking giant. And I don't know, teenager throwing everything in the tackle box at them, and they're just like it's bouncing off them. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yep.
I assume it was probably carp at that time then.
Most
So
likely.
yeah, they're fun. I got spots. We could go do that. That's more of like that's when I'll have a couple beers because you're sitting up. You got your setup and.
Is that a live bait thing?
Nope.
No.
So yeah, you'll use. Oh man, the Europe dudes are real into it. You can use. They call them boilies. They literally make baits. They bake.
They're like dough balls, right?
Right.
Kinda.
Oh, really?
You can get
Cornmeal dough
pop-ups,
ball, right?
They float, and then they got like method mix. So they have sinkers that you basically use like molasses, coconut oil, oatmeal, and seed, all kinds of stuff. You'll make a mix. What you do is you put it on that hook, and you have about a foot of leader, right? And you have like a little corn. They call it a hair rig threaded on, or a boilie, something like that. You hook that into the method mix. So the idea is when it sits, you're chumming,
Yeah.
but your bait's sitting in that chum pile.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Pretty.
it's
There's a lot to it.
Right.
Yep.
We're just about at an hour here, so where can people follow you guys and keep up with you on social media?
I'm on Instagram, Outdoor
Okay.
Junkie 603.
Outdoor Junkie 603.
And then Facebook, post on there quite a bit.
Okay.
But other than that, that's pretty much it for me.
I'm just on the gram, Hooked on Life 603.
Okay.
So
So reach out and people. I mean, these guys are catching monsters, so definitely follow along. Lots of good tips. You guys. Before we take off here, if you could give one tip to a fisherman trying to maybe dabble in the swim bait thing, what would be your biggest tip?
it's a grind. It always pays off.
Yeah.
It may be a day, a week, a month, maybe a year.
Yeah.
Like 5-pounders, they don't come every trip.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just keep at it, and it good things happen. When you put the work in.
My
So-
advice would be to leave all the conventional gear at home and take the
Don't
swim
bring
baits.
it. Okay, that's a good tip. Yeah.
Got no choice.
Force yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You'll
really,
be tempted.
Because if you bring that conventional gear with you, you're gonna switch to it.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
after 10 minutes.
Right,
That's
yeah.
what a lot of people
Right.
do, and they
Yeah.
go, "Well, those swim baits don't work." Well, yeah,
Yeah.
they don't work. Like, I mean, it's not a miracle
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. We're fishing here, people. Come
yeah,
on.
exactly.
Well, it's like when you learn how to bait cast, right?
Yeah.
Don't bring a spin rod.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're gonna get frustrated.
Because
you're
the
gonna
bird
pick it up.
nests 6 times already. Yeah. I'm gonna switch it up.
So
So
Yeah.
commit to it.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, commit to it, and then spend the time, dedicate the time,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and keep the end game in sight. Because once you get it dialed,
Yeah.
it's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, before we go, so like my dad, for instance, I got him into swim baits, and he was doing that at first. He was bringing conventional gear with him, and he kept switching to it, And I told him one day, I said, you need to stick with it. Stick with it for a whole trip. Just leave all that at home and just bring it with you and stick with it.
Yeah.
And the first time he did that, it took him a few hours, but he ended up sticking 1 over 5. And ever since then, it was history. He's all swim baits now. It's just that.
I'm
it's
throwing all my shit
Done.
away.
We're done. Summer's over.
Yeah.
No more work.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
no, thanks for having us.
Thank
Yes.
you. Appreciate it.
Good deal. We'll see ya.
Later.
Later.
Yeah, baby, when we're together. It's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Just like a sip of wine leaves me to drink. You're my gateway drug. I'm starting to think it's gonna take much more than just 12 steps. So call Betty Ford, call Dr. Drew, save me a bed, 'cause in a month or two I wanna quit you, girl, just not yet. Yeah, baby, when we're together, you're the only drug I need. But in the morning I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Barreling down the road past these city lights, you got your hands on the wheel, a look in your eye. I ask myself, is it time to slow down? But the night's still young, we're full of gas, credit cards in my pocket with some limit left, and we got friends in the next town. Yeah, baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Yeah, oh baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning I'll know better. 'Cause you're so bad for me. Oh, 'cause you're so bad for me. 'Cause you're so bad for me.